All right, well, let's go ahead and pull up Ashley and we will get started on Total Control You.
Hey everyone.
Oh, hello, how are you doing today, Ashley?
I'm wonderful. How are you doing?
Pretty good. As Brian said, you can take up more time if you'd like. Are you ready to show us a lot of cool stuff?
Absolutely. We are going to show a lot of cool, fun, different things. Just so everyone out there is aware, if I lose lights, like it'll probably take me 30 seconds to walk around the table and turn on that light over there that's not on right now. I live in Ohio and we are in the midst of like high winds, chaos, whatever. So my lights all have flickered a couple of times today, but if everything plugged into battery backup. So we're going to keep our fingers that we don't cross. We don't actually need that light on the other side of the table.
Right.
So
We'll make it work. Today's all about going with the flow, right?
exactly. And it happens so often that that's just what we do. We just go with it. And however it works, it happens to work. So
Yeah.
absolutely. But yeah, so we're going to talk about embroidery on garments and Floriani Total Control U. And we're just going to kind of smash it all together and show you guys a bunch of different fun things you can do, specifically focusing on garments, embroidery, because, you've got all those great options for construction. I know you all were just looking at those great sergers and whatnot. And, once we get clothes, sometimes we like to make them ourselves like that. And sometimes we just want to take something that already exists. Like this is just, a kid's hoodie I picked up somewhere and add some great embroidery to the back of it, the front, the sides, the pockets, whatever in the world it happens to be, in order to personalize it and make it our own. And there's a story behind this one, why this horse looks a little bit crazy. And don't worry, I'll be happy to share that with y'all. So I want to show you first and foremost some of those stabilizers that I like to reach for when I'm doing embroidery on garments. And Trisha showed you a couple of those when she was showing you that giveaway box. And I quickly ran over to my collection and grabbed one of those too. So let me pop that up here. Here we go. Here is my one of it. And out of this box, my first two things that I reach into here and find when I'm embroidering on garments are that Power Mesh Fusible Cutaway and my Perfect Stick Tearaway. Now, that other stuff in there, I definitely use that too, but these are my two go-to stabilizers for garments. Now, little refresher course on stabilizers. I know we could all use a little bit of help, and sometimes we need a little more help than others. And don't worry, there are great ways to get help out there. You can always visit the Floriani website and download the stabilizer workbook. We have an app for stabilizer that you can download right on your phone. I don't know, mine's somewhere here on the table, but you can literally put in what fabric you've got and it'll make a recommendation for your stabilizer. So you can go get those out of your collection or order some if you need more or are running out. But lots of times clothing has some stretch to it. So that is why this Power Mesh Fusible is one of those first things that I like to reach for. So just that reminder, if your item has stretch to it, like my top today has lots of stretchiness to it, somehow we have to stop the stretch that's going on here before we can put our embroidery on there. So my preference is the Power Mesh Fusible Cutaway. I like the Fusible because I can iron it to the wrong side. And when I go to get it in my hoop, I don't have to worry about it shifting around on me. So let's see here. I should have, here we go, right where it belongs, a little pile of some ultra cute baby onesies, because let's be honest, these are so cute and fun. They're stretchy, so they're easy to get baby dressed in, and they make great gifts, right? What better way than to personalize a onesie for someone that's expecting a new little one, of all of those great things that you could do, something practical and useful. So we got to stop the stretch on this first and foremost, same way that we would do it on the shirt that I have on here. So you are going to take that and flip it to the inside. So now it's inside out. And I went ahead, there's an extra scrap of fabric there. Scraps of fabric in sewing rooms? Never. All right. So I went ahead and pre-fused my power mesh to the inside front of my baby onesie. This goes on with a medium temperature dry iron. And if you ever forget that, remember inside all of your rolls of Floriani stabilizer, there's a little sheet of paper in there rolled up that reminds you what it is that you're doing. So you don't have to go search online and find it all out. And I always recommend when you're done using that little sheet, roll it back up and slide it back inside of there. That way, once you take this outer wrapping off and it's just a naked roll of stabilizer floating around your sewing room, you have a fighting chance of identifying what it is, other than like the licking the corner or all sorts of odd things you could do to figure out what it is. By the way, the licking the corner only works if it's water soluble, and I don't really recommend it. So we've got this fused to the inside of my onesie. Now I fused my nude color on here so that way all of you out there could see it rather than there just being a white square fused on here. And if you're fortunate enough to have a small enough hoop, maybe you've got a multi-needle machine that has the free arm with it, that you can just go ahead and hoop this up, go right ahead and do that. But I don't have any of those. I generally stitch on my single needles. So that means I'm probably going to be working in like my 4x4 hoop, and trying to get this Tetrised into this could be a little bit of a conundrum, right? So that is where my other stabilizer here, that other one that I told you was my favorite, the Perfect Stick Tearaway, is going to come into play here. Yeah, I'm going to use 2 stabilizers to get my baby onesie in the hoop. So I have a piece of Perfect Stick already trimmed here. And Perfect Stick, if you've never worked with this before, this is the tearaway version. You could do this with cutaway too. They're both going to work the same way and how we get them into our hoop. There are 2 sides to this. There is a side that looks and feels like stabilizer, and then the other side, it's wrinkly and it's kind of crinkly and it's scratchy if you run your fingernails over it. It has that kind of like look and feel of maybe wax paper, or parchment paper is probably kind of a better texture to give you. That side is covering up a really great sticky surface underneath here. So we're going to go ahead and get that into our embroidery hoop. So I've got my hoop here. I'm going to just put it down, lay it so that loud noisy side is face up in my hoop, pop my hoop into place there. There we go, all nice and in. I'm going to fold this back just so you can see that I am going to tighten up my screw. Oh, my screw's already nice and tight. I think this was probably the last thing I had in here. I did just do some fun other stuff using my Perfect Stick. So there we go. I have my Perfect Stick in here now. I told you this was sticky so we could stick our baby onesie down. Could be a fun day. So in order to get my item in here, I need to expose that sticky surface. So I am just going to use a straight pin, and I'm going to score from corner to corner in my hoop. And then I'm just going to use a pin to kind of work underneath here and pick up these little flaps. Sometimes people tell me they like to score around the outside edge of their hoop too, but look at how easy that just tore away there. And let's get the rest of this off.
Doing that is oddly satisfying, by the way.
Right? I am a fan of ripping things in general. So yeah, it is so super satisfying. I'm with you on that. And then we would go ahead and put this down on our flat surface, and we're going to stick our baby onesie to it. So I'm going to put mine down here. I apologize. I don't have an overhead camera set up today. It was not playing nicely with the rest of my setups. I was like, all right, we'll improvise. That's always how it works. So baby onesie is stuck down here now. So now we're going to need to open up the little area here where we're actually going to put the embroidery in place. And you could open this up a multitude of ways, a combination of clips, pins. Honestly, I reach for my embroidery perfection tape first and foremost. So I am just going to lay this back down flat because of course you would be working on a flat surface too. And I promise I'll pick it up so you can see it once I've got everything kind of taped into place here. I'm going to tape down at my neckline first so it can't shift. I'm going to roll up the bottom of my onesie so I don't stitch it to the back side of my hoop. If you've never stitched something to the back side of your hoop, that's a real treat the first time it happens. You're like, wait, how did this even happen? And you'll be sure that you're super careful to make sure that that doesn't happen again. So I've got my bottom rolled up and just kind of loosely tucked out of my way for the moment. Now we got to get the rest of this pulled down and those little army things flopped open. This is a 0 to 3 month onesie, so really teeny tiny. On pretty much the 3 to 6 month and up, I like to pull the bottom of this up, but this one's so small, we got to pull the neckline down. And I'm going to be honest with you, I know that idea of that like newborn preemie size would make some super cute baby onesies. Just buy them. Buy them already pre-done. Don't try to embroider them. Honestly, it's a lot more frustration than what it's probably worth in the end. So let's see. We're going to kind of squish up this little arm and tape it out of the way. And I'll do the same thing over here on the other side. And honestly, buying those little ones, if you're anything like me, my last two nephews, they were 9.5 and 10 pounds a piece. They never fit in the cute little teeny tiny stuff anyway. So 0 to 3 was kind of like the starting point for them. And I think they fit in them for like the first week, maybe. So, all right, I think this one last piece here, we'll get this enough out of the way that everyone can see what it is that I'm looking to accomplish here. There we go. So now we have this open little area here where you can put your embroidery on. Now, do you know where the little hoop trace function button is on your machine? The little thing that kind of like runs around like a little box. You are going to want to use that in here to make sure that you're not going to stitch on top of any of this other fabric that we've pulled out of the way. The other thing that I do recommend you do, remember I used that nude power mesh on here? Turn this to the back side and then hold it up to the light. Oh, you can kind of sort of see it there. Just make sure that that area where you're going to be stitching actually has the power mesh underneath it. Because if you try to stitch this and you stitch off of that power mesh on this tiny little baby onesie, it's probably perfectly fine. You're going to finish it off. We're going to cover up the back side of it. Don't worry, I'll tell you what I like to use there too. And you're going to go ahead and use it yourself or give it as a gift. But if you were using a similar technique on some other things and you stitched off of it, that could be a little bit of a problem. I've been there. I've done it. I put a cute little kitty cat on one of them. And look at that. Kitty cat goes right up off the top of that stabilizer there. So any of this area underneath that little bit of tail curled up or the points of the ears at the top there wouldn't be held in place well for all of time, because that's the whole reason why we're using a cutaway on our stretchy fabrics. We want to stop the stretch for all of time, not just while we're getting it in our hoop and doing our embroidery, but as it's being worn, as it's laundered, etc. So that way the embroidery looks great for years to come. We've all probably had that stabilizer mishap. Usually happens when we're just getting started and we're learning something and you put something on it and you're super proud of it and you give it as a gift. And the next time you go to visit someone, towels are where I see this a lot. It's like wrinkled and crinkled up because maybe you didn't choose the right stabilizer because you didn't know any better. Same idea here. We want to make sure we get the right stabilizer underneath there so this looks great. Now, realistically, this is a tiny little baby onesie. We are going to take and cut off this extra stabilizer. I would probably take this off using, where did I put it here? There we go. I would probably reach inside of my embroidery favorite tool set here and grab this funky pair of scissors in here. These are the stabilizer and lace trimming scissors. They have a little bump at the bottom of them, so that way as you're trimming, the bump helps to keep that above your stabilizer, so that way you can trim it out and you don't have to worry about inadvertently nicking the back side of your project there. So after you've got that trimmed out, you're going to want to finish it somehow, right? Because we're talking embroidery on garments, things that people are going to put on. May not be us, might be someone else. And we want to make sure that that feels as soft as possible against the skin. So, how in the world do we make that happen? In this case, I like to go with, where's my one here? I like to pull out some of my Floriani Dream Weave. So this package of Dream Weave has been a little bit loved. I've been using it here making some Easter gifts. But Dream Weave is designed to be a finishing product. You're actually going to fuse this over the wrong side of the embroidery once you're finished doing it. So in this case, let's flip this one inside out here. You can see I have a little bit of an exaggerated size piece here, so it shows up on camera well, of my Dream Weave fused to the wrong side of the embroidery. So this is going to enclose all of those stitches so it feels nice and soft against the skin. Because, it's not really the thread or the fabric choices or the stabilizer or anything like that that makes embroidery itchy. It's a fundamental part of how it's put together. It's those teeny tiny little stitches that are one on top of another, the knots that help to keep our thread from unraveling, that makes embroidery feel itchy. Our skin just feels that difference in texture and tells our brain, this is itchy, we need to itch. So fun little science fact there too. So you're going to fuse your Dream Weave over the back side of it, in closing all of those stitches, so that way it doesn't have that itchy, scratchy feel to it. And you don't have to limit yourself on using Dream Weave on just things you've embroidered. You can use it behind lots of things, especially wearables that are scratchy. I have a pair of jeans that I bought and I paid way too much money for them, but the inside, like inseam of them, drove me crazy. So I cut little 2-inch pieces of Dream Weave and just fused it over the inside of the seams on the jeans. Now I can wear them again. So think stuff like that too, outside of the box, will allow you to easily be able to do, use that in multiple ways. Now, of course, baby onesies aren't the only combination that you might be doing that on. What about a polo shirt with a left chest logo or, some kind of placement up here? In that case, I would actually use exactly the same combination of stabilizers. And this one right here is done and embroidered. So ready to go. I've got my pocket full of notions over here. I'm going to show you where this came from. Super duper cute. But right here on my polo shirt, ready to go. So when I flip this one inside out, you're going to notice something a little bit different because I haven't put Dream Weave over the back side of this one yet. This one, you can see my power mesh is there. And then this kind of light little fluffiness, that is the remnants of the Perfect Stick left behind. I've washed this one a couple of times. It just travels with me so everyone can see how the Perfect Stick tearaway washes. Actually built on the Stitch and Wash foundation. So it's partially water soluble, partially fibers. So it gets really nice and soft in there, which is why sometimes when you see it on the back of a finished item, it might have a little bit of a bearded or a pilled appearance to it. Just know that that's those fibers that are trapped underneath your embroidery stitches, holding them together for all of time. Now, I know someone out there is probably thinking, but Ashley, that's a pretty good size garment. It looks like the shirt fits you. Yeah, it does. It fits me. So why did you use the Perfect Stick to get it into your hoop? Why didn't you just hoop it right up with the power mesh? And honestly, it was a combination of things. First of all, it's kind of close to the placket here, so I wasn't able to get enough space to keep even tension the whole way across. And then you've got the shoulder and the arm seam where those are coming together. So to keep the best tension on this, to get the best embroidery results possible, it just made more sense to stick it down to my perfect stick tearaway rather than fighting to try and get all of this hooped nice and straight. So same kind of fabric, just now we're using it for an adult application as opposed to that tiny little baby onesie. Now, if I was doing something just on the back side of this polo shirt here, I would actually fuse my power mesh and then I would just hoop it all up and put it into my embroidery hoop all as one. I wouldn't necessarily need to add my perfect stick tearaway. And I know the frustration of trying to get all of your layers in place and try and get it into your hoop and have it not shift out of place and go crazy, wonky, whatever direction. So let me share with you a few tips to get this exactly where you want it to be. First of all, on the inside, fuse your stabilizer in place. We're going to pretend like I already did that just for the magic of the internet here. Then I am going to go ahead and print myself out a template of the design I'm going to use. And when you print a template, there's different options out there on how you might do things, how you might choose to go with it. We're going to need a hoop here. If you print on just regular printer paper, yes, you can see what the shape and size of your design is. This is just printed right out of FTCU, which I promise we're going to play in yet, on just some regular paper. So, you could try to, see how this is going to go, but you're probably going to have to get out some pins to pin this in place or some tape, something like that. I like to, rather than just printing on regular paper, to print on some of my template tearaway from Floriani. So this is design positioning paper. So one side of it has that loud, noisy release paper sounding side to it. And the other side, again, kind of sort of feels like stabilizer. This time, we're not making something that's going into our hoop, necessarily not in between our hoop at least, but we're printing off a template of what our design is going to look like on that stabilizer feeling side there. Then you're just going to take your paper scissors, not necessarily your good ones for stabilizer and fabric and that kind of stuff. And I know I just said for stabilizer and somebody's going, well, I always make sure that I use fabric scissors on stabilizer. All of the Floriani stabilizer is made from fiber, right? There's no paper there. You're actually embroidering through fiber. So you don't have to worry about your paper scissors, as opposed to your good fabric scissors. And those adhesives that are on those, not necessarily this one because we don't intend for you to sew through it, but the adhesives that are on like Perfect Stick, which is, the sticky tearaway, or Wet and Gone Tacky, which is the water soluble tearaway, or anything that's got a fusible with it. If we intend for it to be sticky or tacky and for you to sew through it, it's also been engineered with silicone. That's why you don't get gummy needles and those kinds of frustrating things. So we have our little design all cut out here. And I have another one here that I've been using. So we're going to use that one rather than me spending a couple of minutes, putting this on my pant leg and pulling it back off. It's nice and sticky when you first use it. So I do recommend sticking it to something kind of fuzzy and pulling it off a couple of times. Lots of times I just use my pant leg for that, to get a little bit of extra fuzziness on here so it doesn't hold on quite so well to my item, so it's easier to peel off as I'm going. And then I'm just going to take this and I'm going to stick it down to my item wherever we want to put this. So I know this is the back side, but we'll pretend like this was kind of a left chest placement kind of thing. So you could put the garment on, audition where this is, and since it's sticky, guess what? It's going to stay in place so you can get it into this hoop. Now, talking about getting it in this hoop, my favorite way to make sure that this stuff doesn't go crazy all over the place and you're not fighting with this inner hoop sliding all around is to take my inner hoop, the inner one, not the one that's going to attach to your machine, and get some of my Stitch Perfection tape. So I just happened to pull some of my 1/2 inch Stitch Perfection tape off today. This is that two-sided sticky needle friendly tape. And I am just going to tear off some pieces of this. And honestly, I'm going to put it right on the back side of my inner embroidery hoop. The cool thing is now we're making your inner hoop temporarily sticky. So you can stick it in place right where it needs to go on top of that design. Now, lots of times I use this for wearables, especially when I want to hoop something to keep nice, even tension across it. Remember, always tear your stitch perfection tape so it's easier to pull off that little release liner that I'm fighting with today. But if you do this, you can stick your inner hoop right where it needs to go. And then you don't have to worry about it shifting when you slide that inner hoop inside of your garment or underneath, that thick, fluffy plush blanket that you're working on. Maybe you're just going to stick that down to start with. But, sometimes we just find we get better results if we can hoop our stuff. There we go. So now I've got this. I'm going to take this and put it down. This hoop is a tiny bit small for this design, but we are just going to fudge it so that way you all can see. Look at that. It's stuck in place right where I need it to be. So you're not necessarily going to pick yours up and hold it up for everyone to see, but now that inner hoop is stuck there. So you can take the outer hoop, slide it inside of your garment and tighten it up, and you don't have to worry about anything shifting around on you. How easy. Stitch perfection tape. You've probably got some of this already around to put in your zippers or turn edges under. I know I always keep a roll close at hand. And then once you have that hooped up, get it on your machine. Use whatever the epic positioning features are that your machine has to make sure this design is exactly where it needs to be. And then before you take the first stitch, peel the template tearaway off. So that way you're not stitching through this. This isn't designed for you to be stitched through. It tears and perforates really, really easily. So it would be stuck underneath your embroidery design, not necessarily where we want it to be. Put it back on the little release paper sheet and you can continue to reuse this for the same design over and over and over again. I usually just print one of these, especially if I'm doing like a whole big assembly line of stuff, and just continue to use, pardon me, the same one over and over and over again. So let me slide this one off to the side here so we have a little more working space. You know what? Let's head into FTCU and take a little peek at how I made the template and how, if you're not really sure what stabilizer to pull out, which one you're actually going to need. So this should show, wow, we'll go this way. Here we go. All right, so there is my Floriani Total Control U. Should be open on your screen now, I'm hoping. Yay, thank you. So this is actually that same design that I just had that we were playing with on the back side of the shirt there. This is one of the free monthly designs from a couple of years ago. If you had not heard before, owners of Floriani Total Control U get 5 free embroidery designs every single month. They don't cost anything. You just have your initial investment in the program. And the cool thing is there are no updates with this either. But for those of you just kind of thinking about things, let me show you how I made this template. It was as simple as putting my template tearaway into my printer and then just going to File. And I'm going to go Print Preview so you can actually see what I would see here and pull up my print preview. Now, page 1 shows you the design in real size, assuming it fits on one sheet of paper. If it takes multiple pages, it breaks it out into those individual pages for you so you can see the design at 100%. Tip, sometimes if you've got a 5x7 and you've been working on it maybe horizontally on your screen, rotate it vertical because it's going to need to go vertical in your hoop anyway, and then it'll print on one sheet of paper as opposed to two of them across. So we've got our little centering lines on there so we can see what it would need to be. So when we print this, printing it right on that template tearaway will allow you just to go ahead and cut it out. Now the second page here has our individual color changes. I love the default way that FTCU shows those color changes and actually shows you what part of the design that color is in, as opposed to just giving you those little squares of color. Of course, you can change it to get just those little squares if you want it to be those. But I like this because lots of times I just swap out colors that I want on the fly and go, oh, I like this green and this green and this red and whatever it is together, as opposed to taking a few minutes to recolor everything. Lots of epic things you can change and adjust. And I do want to show you one quick little setting here. You can turn on what we call the Floriani cat symbol. Looks relatively similar to another symbol that happens to be out there, maybe without ears and a tail, for some of you to use on your machines to do your positioning that have the cameras with them. So yes, you can print out that little same looking shape and your machine will recognize it just the same. So you can let the camera from your machine go ahead and scan all of that and get it into position right where you need it to be. Enough about the print preview here. Let's talk about what in the world we could actually do and how we could maybe take some of our frustration out of things. Let's take, for example, that sewing notions little pocket that I had on the polo. So I'm going to grab a new window here just so we have a fresh blank screen. And just so you know, this works with existing embroidery designs. You can make your own totally from scratch. And we even have, fun options for you. I'm going to use the You Design It option here. This is a little collection of essentially design packs for the software. So there are 15 of these in total. When You Design It first came out, we gave everybody monsters for free, and you choose your little center starting point, and then you kind of attach things out and around it. So it's like I'm playing with monster paper dolls here right on my screen. Now, I know monsters aren't necessarily everybody's jam. There are a bunch of different ones in here. And as you see, I just hit the randomize button so it could kind of play through these and have some fun. But let's stop that and peek at some of these other ones. As a matter of fact, let's grab that pocket full of notions. Look at all those different ones there. Circle monograms and clotheslines and frames and flowers and kids' pockets and lace. Lots of epic things. All of these design collections, these You Design It packs, are coming with new purchases of Floriani Total Control U at no additional cost to you. They are our gift to you from us at Floriani. We mail those to you about 6 to 8 weeks after you register your new software. So let me show you the pocket full of notions here. This is one of my favorite ones. I know it's the sewing nerd in me coming out, but here is my fun little pocket. And then I get to choose what kind of notions I want to add inside of there. So this was actually the little pocket that I made. And we're going to click OK here. And it's going to drop right onto my workspace. So now I can, come in and I can change my colors on things if I want. It does bring these in groups. So if you needed to make some adjustments, it is going to, bring the like items in together. So let's grab this spool of thread there. And let's make it the variegated thread really quick. Okay, so we need to change our thread palette. So that is this little select thread chart in the bottom left-hand corner here. And we are going to head to the Floriani. Oh, I want my variegated and mixed colors. So now my little color swatches here have multiple colors in them. And this particular one, I used the pink variegated. So there we go. Oh, I must not have actually clicked on that there. Oh, there we are. So now it gives me a little preview of what this might look like with the variegated thread. Now, we know that the software starts with one color, and what exact color is in your needle might be a little bit different when you start to sew. So your gradient might look a little different. But look at that. Look how cool that little stripe effect is just from how the fill pattern is on it. So it's a great way to be able to audition some of those more unique threads that sometimes we're afraid to use because we're just not sure how it might look. And I know I just chose the Floriani variegated and mixed, but look at how many different color palettes are there. I know that your wall behind you or wherever it is you store your thread probably isn't all one brand like most of mine is back there. I mean, I've got Floriani, I've got Embellish, and I've got Quilter Select back there, but it's all stuff from R&K. So you can, get in here and get the colors it is that you have in your room that you are working and sewing with. Now, if you've got this design and you're ready to go, somehow we need to get it saved to take it to our embroidery machine, right? So lots of times we just go file and scroll down here to save as, and we're going to go ahead and send it to wherever in the world it needs to go. But if you want to take some of the extra guesswork out of here, choose Save to Sew. This is going to pop up a little wizard here that's going to walk you through the process of saving this design so it's going to stitch optimally for the kind of fabric or the item that you are putting it on. So we have baby onesie there as our default, but look at how many different options are hiding in here. There's a couple, oh my gosh, so many different things. Yeah, there's a few more than a couple here. There's denim in here, cuffs, because cuffs in and of themselves require a little bit of extra finesse. Again, you're not going to be able to get it in that hoop well, so you're probably going to be sticking it down to some perfect stick, flannel, and fleece. A finished handkerchief versus handkerchief linen, assuming that the linen, just in and of itself, you would probably hoop up all in one, but the finished handkerchief, you'd just be doing the corner of it. So there are a ton of different things in here. Pocket top, polar fleece. And I do want to show you that if you scroll almost clear down to the very bottom, because it did take me a little bit to find this, woven cotton lives down here. So if you're thinking about like your quilting weight cottons or those kind of other light quilting weight cotton or just regular woven cotton fabrics, head to the bottom and grab that woven cotton option there. But we were talking about putting that on my polo shirt. So I'm going to come back up to, oh, I don't have a polo here. What did I call this? I don't remember what I called it, but you know what? Let's just go with it. Let's put it on some moisture wicking fabric because I'm pretty sure this is going to tell me exactly the same thing. You always have two options here. I didn't digitize this or I did digitize it. Choose whichever one makes sense to you. Maybe choose one, see how it adjusts, and you can always go back and choose the other one. I didn't make this, but the reason why I say choose one versus the other, there's this little box inside of the big box here that says new style settings. And there's a checkbox option there to change the density, the underlay, the pull compensation, and all the other settings. So now Walter Floriani is swooping into your FTCU and he is going to adjust that embroidery design to go on the fabric that you have chosen to put it on. So it's going to adjust all those settings, take out extra stitches that you don't need, or maybe add some stitches in if some of them are a little bit too long. So on the next screen here, now Kay Brooks, the K of R&K, is coming in here and she is going to tell you what stabilizers to go grab out of your collection. Ooh, this actually is giving me a little bit different result than what I was necessarily thinking of. But that's okay. Sometimes there's more than one way to do something. It's recommending my cutaway medium Fusible from Floriani as opposed to the power mesh. Honestly, kind of comes down to self-preference. Cutaway medium is more traditional fiber based versus power mesh is a nylon base. So you've got your option there. It's telling you to hoop the item because we just told it that it was moisture wicking fabric. And then it is recommending that I put some topper on the top of there. If that wasn't what you wanted, go back, choose the other fabric that you really had intended on. Like, for example, my baby onesie here. This is going to give me my power mesh, my perfect stick, telling me to stick it down and to retrieve some of my heat and gun. And notice there are little links here to YouTube on these. So if it's 3 a.m. and you have forgotten, how you're going to use your perfect stick, you can click the link and head right out to YouTube and we'll tell you how you're going to use that. Some other options in here as far as recommendations for alternate stabilizers, needles, those kind of things. And when we finish this, it's going to want to save it to our computer. We're just going to drop it right here on my desktop. Notice in that little design section over there on the right-hand side, it tells me all of that information that I just had in the pop-up. And when you print it out, that information is going to be on that first page with the real size preview of your design. Now, when you go to save this, you're going to probably save it as whatever the file format was for your machine. And we saw me just quickly save that and drop it onto my desktop. I have set up my preferences in here, like I recommend you do too, to save this as, a certain kind of file. So mine is going to save as EXP because that is what I most commonly stitch in myself with my machines. But you can set it to autosave your WAF format, your machine. You can change this to any one of a number of different things out there. So it's got that file format in there that you're going to need for your embroidery machine. And remember, you want to save it as the WAF, which is our file format, and your embroidery machine format. That way you don't have to worry about not having the original design to play with, because the WAF file is always going to have the most information possible in there when you've created it here. So there are so many different things that you can do and you can play with, etc. But I want to take a moment and kind of head back out of this and show you some other stuff on other wearables, right? Because that's not the end all be all. Knit fabric isn't the only thing that we embroider on. So I held up this little jacket earlier. So this is some sweatshirt fleece. So this was a ready-made sweatshirt and it's got some stretch to it. So my stabilizers of choice, honestly, were exactly the same thing that I had used on my baby onesie, except I took a little extra step here. You see this big piece of white that's fused directly to the inside of the jacket? That is some of our Dreamweave Ultra. So Dreamweave Ultra isn't necessarily something you're going to go pull out of your collection for every single piece of embroidery that you do. Dreamweave Ultra is designed for embroidery on all kinds of fabrics, but specifically things that are ultra dense. Have you ever had that embroidery design that you've done the math on the stabilizer and you've got, a primary stabilizer and maybe a floater or maybe 2 floaters because maybe it's got 30,000 stitches in a 4x4 area. And oh my gosh, there is so much. And you start to embroider and it's looking good. And the more stitches it puts down, suddenly it's like your project is coming up out of the hoop. Not like the hoops coming apart, but the project is just growing and getting bigger. That happens when we put so many needle penetrations into the item we're embroidering on that the fabric itself can no longer hold together because we're just fracturing it and breaking it apart. So if you take a moment and you fuse some Dreamweave Ultra to the back side of the project before you add your stabilizer, this is going to be an extra layer of defense to hold everything together so that way your fabric is less likely to get that cupping or doming effect to it. So I started with my Dreamweave Ultra because this cool little horse design, I think this was like 37,000 stitches in like a 4x5-ish area. So it's a pretty good size design. It might be 4x6. I don't have it in front of me. But I knew I was going to need something to help hold the sweatshirt fleece together because this was a really dense design and I didn't want it to get that great big cupping thing going on. So prepared it with my Dreamweave Ultra first and foremost. And then I went ahead and fused my power mesh in place. Again, use whatever color makes sense. I used the nude just so that way you could see the little bit of it. And then, depending on the positioning of this, etc., you could just go ahead and hoop it up as normal. You might need a floater or two underneath there. This particular one, I actually wasn't sure where it was going to fall in relation to these little sleeve edges. So I went ahead and stuck it down to my Perfect Stick Tearaway. So right there's 2 layers of stabilizer, one with my power mesh, one with my Perfect Stick Tearaway. Why can I use the Perfect Stick Tearaway and I don't have to change to cutaway? Because the power mesh that was the first thing we attached was the right stabilizer for the project. And then on this particular one, this fabric did have a little bit of lofty fluffiness to it. I know there's no way it's going to show up on camera, but it has kind of a light little fluffy texture to it. So I elected to go ahead and add some topping before I got stitching. My topping of choice on this one was my Heat and Gone because I just told you that it had that kind of fluffy appearance to it. So I wanted to make sure that the fluffiness stayed underneath my stitches and didn't try to pop up between them as I was going. Now, I'm sure someone out there is going, Ashley, why in the world is your horse pink and blue? And are those highlights in lime green? Yes, they are. So I told you I was working on Easter gifts and I asked my 5-year-old nephew what he wanted, on a sweatshirt for Easter. And he told me he wanted a horse. And I said, okay, no big deal. What color horse do you want? I should have known the answer was going to be rainbow. It was rainbow. So I channeled my inner like Lisa Frank Tula Pink and went kind of crazy off the wall to come up with these colors here. So that is why we have a pink, blue, and green horse on the back of this little jacket because that's what he wanted. So that's what he's going to get. And, I don't have to pay attention to the recommended colors for the design. I can make this work however I need it to be for what it is that I'm doing. So same stuff, same stabilizers there that I pulled out originally. There was an option in there to do a cuff in Save to Sew. So what about putting embroidery on the cuff of, a shirt? First of all, leave the cuff attached to the shirt. Please don't cut it off. This is just a whole extra thing, but it's way easier for me to handle rather than, having a whole shirt flopping over here too, as I'm trying to show you. Unbutton your cuff. And then I just this was a non-stretch fabric, by the way, hooped up my Perfect Stick Tearaway, and then I can just stick this down in place and do all of my embroidery. And when I'm done, pull up the edges and tear it away there. So it's a really great way to be able to do some quick embroidery on things like that and not have to, fight with it. Sometimes, you get odd things that you want to embroider on. Like, have you ever seen people embroider on socks? They're super duper stretchy, right? So are you going to fuse a little piece of power mesh behind and then stick it down to your Perfect Stick Tearaway? You might. You might also just swap it for Perfect Stick Cutaway. It's like Perfect Stick, but it's built on Cutaway Medium as opposed to the Tearaway base. So you've always got options, and Save to Sew and FDCU is a really great way to figure out where the starting point is. You might make an adaptation or a substitution based on what you have on hand, especially if you're like me and you're a procrastination sewer that's usually sewing in the middle of the night right before something needs to be ready to go, in order to make it all work. I've got a few other fabrics here of things that I want to share with you. Specifically, I've got one big one over here. So pardon me while I move some things around. So this is crepeback satin. Oh, I know it's pretty, but the thought of sewing with it probably gives some of you the heebie-jeebies. For me, I have done a ton of work with crepeback satin. I've made lots and lots of costumes. Costumes are garments. They're just a little bit more playful than what we go with every day. And this particular piece was made to be kind of a replica of Brad's Blue Robe from the Rocky Horror Picture Show that came out in 75 for anyone who's like, wait, how old is that? Yeah, it's old. It's okay. But it's got all of this beautiful embroidery on the back side of it. And of course, trying to source something that old, for a replica isn't necessarily going to happen. So I had to come up with a combination of stuff to make this work. Well, crepeback satin's beautiful, right? But it's slinky and it's slippery and it just wants to go everywhere as you're doing it. And if you've ever sewn with it before, you have to have the right needle for the job, or something like a satin, a silk, a taffeta, even organza, thinking about fussy fabrics. You can wind up with runs in the fabric, right? So I start by preparing the fabric first and foremost to be able to take this embroidery. And I did a little bit smaller piece just so it was more manageable, as this is going to slide on the floor on me anyway, which is what I was trying to avoid. I did just a quick little monogram here on something. So on the back side here, you can see that I've got my Dreamweave Ultra fused to the back first and foremost. Why am I fusing Dreamweave Ultra when I'm not doing an ultra dense design? Well, because this fabric is really delicate. So I'm just looking to add extra stitch count to the fabric so it holds together well. And then in the case of this particular one, I stuck it down to some Perfect Stick in order to hold it in place. And I'm not so super sure how it's going to show up on screen here, but this, honestly, it looks really nice. There's a little bit of pulling around the edges of the design. So while it's a stable fabric and it's been prepared correctly, the Perfect Stick, did give it the ability to walk and wander just ever so slightly. I've actually found over time, trial and error, that while the Perfect Stick works good, and yes, it's the right stabilizer for what you want to do. And if you weren't necessarily needing the sticky component of it, you could swap out to, say, like Stitch and Wash. Stitch and Wash Fusible. But I actually prefer my Power Mesh Fusible behind it. And this is going to sound really kind of counterintuitive. Satin, some silks, taffeta, crepeback satin, I find most of them can endure at least a little bit of heat. Of course, always try a little thing on the side first, but I actually prefer to fuse my power mesh to the back and then hoop the entire item as opposed to floating it. That is how I get such great results on these, because look at these butterflies. Like, these are really pretty dense. Sorry, this one's been folded a little bit. But they're pretty dense and there's no pulling or puckering around the edge. 7511 chrome embroidery needle is what I prefer to do these. 75 gets a nice light fabric. I don't need any thicker or heavier thing. If you are going on something super finicky like organza, you might, back it off and go maybe with like a 70, not necessarily an embroidery needle, but you might go with like a 65 or a 70 from a needle size, just to make sure that you're not disturbing that weave of the fabric so much. But for me, I find that my 7511 chrome embroidery needles work pretty well for this kind of stuff. Now, denim. I didn't forget about you. I know that, coming back into style are embroidered jeans again, and some of you probably have them on your list of projects to do. So, denim, again, same idea, depending on if it has stretch or not. If it has stretch, you're going to need to stop that. In this case, I've got some black power mesh fusible fuse to the back side here before I went ahead and did all of the embroidery on this one. Now, this one is kind of a work in progress, got some fun thread there and just kind of an all over texture. I'm going to cut this down to make a little clutch bag with it. But other things like this was a fun one I did a few years ago. Yep, that's me. But in embroidery, I did that with our Sketch a Stitch software. But again, it's on denim. Little bit different denim this time and pretty dense work here in some of this. So again, I've prepared the back of my fabric with my Dreamweave Ultra so that way it doesn't go anywhere. This one, I just went ahead and fused my heat and stay on the back of it. You might remember there was some heat and stay in the box that Trisha showed us at the beginning of, part of what you can win. This is great for solid, dense designs on stable fabrics. Other things you've got in there, just so you know, that tearaway medium, this is my most common floater that I pull from. And, the Heat and Gone. I use my Heat and Gone probably more frequently than I use my water soluble topping because, if I've taken the time to put topping in place, I'm probably really looking to make sure that everything stays. So, we've played with some different options here. We've played with FTCU. Let's see what else we can do there. Let's actually head back over in to FTCU again. And that should give me what I need. Might take just a moment to pop back over on your side there. There we go. So there are so many epic things you can do inside of here. FTCU is our full-fledged digitizing suite. Oh my gosh, Ashley, digitizing? Well, yeah, digitizing doesn't have to be that crazy complex. Starting from a blank screen and using the tools to individually make something stitch by stitch by stitch. Digitizing can be as simple and as easy as, grabbing something that you have for an existing design or maybe something that you've started with. Oh, here's a fun little snowman. Oh, our snowman, I do not think needs to be pink variegated thread. For anyone wondering, it is definitely an interesting look there, but let's go ahead and swap this back to, let's go to my color spectrum so I don't have quite so many colors here. And it brought everything in that way. So you know what? New design, I must have load to palette match turned on here. And let's get rid of those stitch points. Oh, there we go. There's the right button. And we'll turn on 3D just so you can see it the way we intended it to be. So digitizing doesn't have to be as crazy as starting from scratch. It can be as simple as bringing in your, an existing design and, deciding, maybe you don't want, everything from the arm. So maybe you're going to select your design here. We got to ungroup this so we can start to play with it. Tip, if you bring things in from the browser over here on the right-hand side of the screen, everything comes in grouped. So it's really easy to move around. If you do file open or use the open button in the file menu, it comes in ungrouped. So when you try to move things around, you got to remember to select everything if you want to move it all as one big group. So we could go in here and you know what? Maybe you only want to get rid of one arm there. So we could just select that. And you know what? I'm just going to come over here and, I don't need any arms at all today. We're good. So there, my arms are gone. Maybe I want to make an adjustment to where this little happy, expression is on his face. I can kind of move it around and get it to where I need it to be. Oh, now I got to readjust my eyes a little bit there. So let's ungroup my eyes. Oh, they're all together because I merged this into an EXP to go to my machine. So it's okay. I can, you know what? Let's just get rid of it. I don't need the extra there. Let's delete it and let's start over from scratch. So here, quick and easy little shape. I'll grab a little circle here. Okay, it's going to be the very last thing that appeared. It's yellow. Oh my goodness. It's artwork right now. We're going to change the color so you can see it. And one quick click. Now it's embroidery. So now I made myself a new little eye here. And I could copy and paste it and have a second little eye. I just digitized something there. Yeah, just from zero, totally from scratch to start with. It's not as scary as the word sounds, but you can play with things however you want. So I want to tell you a couple other fun things. So remember how I told you that, all of the U Designants right now are coming included when you purchase?
Ashley?
Yeah.
Hey, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Will you back up? I have a question for you. What is digitizing?
Oh my gosh, digitizing. Digitizing is literally making embroidery stitches. So seriously, let's digitize a star really quick. So it could be coming into something like a shape library. So we've got a built-in shape library here. And I could scroll and choose a star. I'm sure there's one in here. There we go. Let's go the pointed star. So this right now, the slow redraw tool is totally empty. This is just a shape. It's just a piece of art. There are no stitches here. But digitizing is transforming something that isn't stitches into embroidery stitches. So in this case, if we just want this to be a solid filled in star, I can use my solid fill options down here at the bottom, and one quick click, let me turn on 3D so you can see it, that's now stitches. We just digitized something. Kind of cool, huh? And I know lots of times people start getting into software because you want to digitize something in particular. So up here at the top, we've got the digitizing wizards. These don't require you to be a wizard. They're going to do it all for you. We've got cross stitch, we've got a photo stitch, we've got an auto artwork, we've got an auto digitizing, and the advanced digitizing. Let's use the auto digitizing wizard here. You're going to go find a design, or a picture rather, not even a design. We're making a design. We're not there yet. I am a little ahead. You're going to go find that picture that's on your computer that you want to digitize. Now, you'll notice lots of these are nice and clean and simple. The cleaner, the simpler your picture, the better the results will be that you get. Let's do this little fairy wand here, since we were kind of talking about, magical wizard options. So this one is just you selecting it. Next screen is you telling the program what size you want it to be. If your rulers are in inches, your size here will come up in inches. So just so you know, it's just a right click on the ruler and you can change from inches to metric and back and forth. So let's make this, about 4 inches tall. So it's going to auto change my width for me also. We're going to go next. And now it asks how many colors are part of this design. Frequently, I find people are like, the white is not part of the design. You're right, it's not. It's the background color, but it's important that it's here right now, because this is just showing us a really super simplified version of this. You can add and remove colors here if you were missing some or you needed some extras. We're going to stick with 5 for right now, and I'm going to go next. The difference from the first screen to the second screen is that tiny little black outline that goes around those. And when I click this, lots of times people are like, but I don't want a black outline there, Ashley. I know. It's just the program showing you the color separations that it is seeing. So that's important at this point that you see that. If you don't like how it separated the colors, you can slide this little tolerance slider over here and hit update outlines, and it will change things. Now, Underneath that picture there, see how there's a little checkbox to fill the background area, color area with stitches. If you needed this background color to be stitches for some reason, maybe it's a white background and you're digitizing a dog and there are whites to its eyes, click that, because otherwise all of the white, it's going to think you don't want. Here, we're totally good to go though. We get to make some choices on this next screen. They call it judgment. Kind of love it personally. Minimize your color or your jump based on if you're on a single or a multi-needle. When do you want to lock your stitch? I lock my stitch always, because even if my machine isn't going to trim, I still want the stitch to lock so I can go back and trim that little stitch myself. And then I can trim never, always, or only at a certain distance. I like to program the distance of 5 millimeters. Now, your embroidery machine might override this depending on what your settings are, or it might just tool along with it. Sometimes we can change that on our machine. Smaller than 5 millimeters, I'm going to let it go ahead and, not cut that jump stitch, save myself some time. So we're going to finish. There is my cool little fairy wand, digitized from zero. So yeah, you can take pictures from scratch and digitize them to get them in here. So that's what digitizing is, the quick and easy way. So where I was heading was, as we're building all of these things and we're doing things and we're accumulating embroidery designs, sometimes it's helpful to know what we actually have. And that is where Floriani My Design Album can be really, really helpful. So this is a completely separate program. Now, the cool thing is, if you already have Floriani Total Control U, or maybe if you don't, you can get just My Design Album. This allows you to watch the folders where your embroidery designs are at on your computer. And in other words, you're giving this program permission to peek inside of things. I know Windows doesn't ask for permission for everything. It just does whatever it wants. But My Design Album is going to ask you where your embroidery designs are at. And you're going to scroll through, whatever on your computer, and you're going to click where they are. So I opened some of my Floriani designs, and I specifically opened my Forever Tattoo design collection, and I told it I just wanted it to play with the PES designs. I like PES because it retains color information. So when I'm looking for designs, I like to be able to see them this way. So I'm going to click OK, and it's watched that folder, and it's gathered up those designs and brought me in a little thumbnail of them. They come up in this little area over here on the left-hand side, the pending area, so you can see what you've got. And once they're in here in pending, you can click on it and you can see things like the size, the number of stitches, etc. And there's an option down here to edit keywords. So if you've ever wanted a program where you can kind of catalog your designs and assign them keywords, this is the program for you, because you're going to assign keywords to this. So let's see here. I cannot talk and type at the same time. I do not have that talent. So anchor, rope, you could add in anything you want there, just to separate those by a comma. And we're going to click OK. And now it says keywords, anchor and rope. And then I'm just going to take this design, because this is in my pending right now. Oh, hang on, we got to do something first. Over here in the bottom left-hand side by embroidery, click that little plus button, and you can see a bunch of pre-built in categories here. So if you don't like a category, you can add additional ones there. And to go ahead and categorize these, you're just going to grab this, click, hold, and drag this to a new place. I'm going to put this in transportation for right now, since it would be part of a boat, and a boat is a means of transportation. And now it is in the transportation category. So it dropped out of that little pending folder, and it is there. So the thing about My Design Album is you don't necessarily have to spend hours and hours giving everything keywords. You can tell the program where your designs live, and then you can just drag them into those categories, or you can make your own new ones to make it easy to find things. You can print out, a sheet that looks very similar to what's on the floor over there. The sheet that I used as the template to print on my template tear away right from here to be able to get there. Now, when you first start setting this up, you might be tempted to click on that folder where all of your embroidery designs are and tell it this is where everything lives. And I'm going to tell you from experience, your computer's going to run really, really slow because essentially it's going through and it's learning where all of that stuff is at. It's not moving things, it's not making extra copies, it's just finding out the best routes to get to them. I.e., this kind of becomes like the GPS for your embroidery designs. Where do they live on my computer? How do I find them? And it will allow you to be able to easily get to them. Yes, you have to put some work in order to make it work for you. But the cool thing is, once you've got the work in, you can back up your catalog. You can even back up and save all of your designs somewhere else if you need to. The idea of our computers crashing can be really scary. So wouldn't it be nice to be able to easily just make an entire backup of all of your embroidery designs and save it to an external hard drive in case you ever needed to go back and find it again? My design album will let you do that. So you can get just my design album, or if you're electing to get FTCU and become a brand new owner of it, we at R&K are including my design album with those You Design It collections that will ship to you in roughly 6 to 8 weeks after you've, registered your software online. So that activation process, super simple, pops up a little activation wizard after you download and install. Type in your information at the top, select your program down at the bottom, type in the activation code and hit activate. It's just going to ping the servers. No physical dongle that you have to plug in anymore. It's just a virtual one that's going to live right on your machine. There we go. I think that's got me about to my end of my time there, Trisha. So that worked out well.
That was great. That was wonderful. I'm not going to lie. My brain's going, whoo, there's so much information, but you explained it very, very well. I am very excited to play with this particular software, that's for sure. But we do actually have quite a few questions if you're available to stick around for a little bit longer.
Absolutely. Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. Okay. I see that Brian popped one up. Is it easier to digitize PNGs or JPEGs?
Honestly, whichever one is going to be cleaner. Lots of times our PNGs have a little bit better color separation to them than what our JPEGs do. But at the end of the day, as long as it's a good file, you're going to be totally fine.
Wonderful. Let's see. Does Floriani stabilizer come in pre-cut sizes?
So we do have some pre-cuts available. We call them our hoop and go stabilizers. I want to say they are 10 by 15 or 15 by 20. Those sizes might be off ever so slightly. If you go to rnk-floriani.com, that's where you're always going to find your different sizes that stuff comes in. Or if you're like, wait, does Floriani make a fusible water soluble? You can find that on there too. And I'm sure those hoop and go sizes are listed there. I see that next question is, can you import an SVG to be embroidered? Absolutely. You can bring in your SVGs. Remember how I just went to the shape library and I grabbed that star? SVGs are artwork. That little star was artwork. So you just file, open your SVG, and then click on the little parts of it and make them into whatever style embroidery you want. I just played with the fill options at the bottom. There were run stitches. There are all those fills. There are light fills. There is applique. There's embossing. Oh, so many different things there. So yes, your SVGs will absolutely play nice there. And you can go in reverse too. You can take an existing embroidery design, change it to artwork, and then save it as an SVG too. Of course, always keep in mind copyright and that we may not own the rights to do something like that. So be careful when you're going in that direction too, of course. How many computers can you register it on in case you need a new computer? I'm just going to go ahead and read them out and go for it here. So right out of the package, you get 2 installs. So you can register it on your laptop if you have maybe like a Surface that you travel with, because remember, we are going to be on a Windows-based operating system here. So my Mac users, don't fear Parallels or Boot Camp and your copy of Windows, and you're good to go. Parallels would be my preference there, just because you can seamlessly swap back and forth between them. But you're going to get 2 activations right out of the package. So you could have it on 2 of your own computers concurrently. It also does mean that if that computer that you have right now that you have it on, it dies and you don't have the ability to go into the help menu and hit deactivate, you're still going to have a fresh license from when you get the new computer. Now, if something goes totally awry and you need an additional activation for some reason, you can put in a support ticket, explain to us why you need the activation, or you can grab the 1-800 number and give us a call in Knoxville. Explain to us what in the world happened, and usually we'll get you hooked right up with a new serial number or an additional activation. We are pretty good about taking care of you. The cool thing is you buy FTCU one time and it is yours for life. We're not going to ask you for update or upgrade fees. It is yours. And we put out 2 major feature updates a year. So what else do we have for questions going on there? What machine do I use? Oh my goodness. I use so many different machines. Seriously, looking out, I wish I could turn it around, but my studio is a disaster, so I'm not going to do it. But I'm going to tell you, there's a Bernina over there. There's some baby locks tucked under the counter. There's a Viking on that table. There's a Brother on that one, and there's a Janome over there right now. So I am pretty brand agnostic. I am more about the features that the machine has and the support that I get from my local sewing store in my choice of what I'm going to sew on. Because honestly, if you don't have the support behind it, it's kind of frustrating, because I don't want to totally learn all of this stuff from zero again. I know my basic sewing directions, but I want to be able to, take a class or call someone and be like, why doesn't this feature work? So lots of times you're buying, not only the machine, but whoever you got it from too. Are there classes for the software? Okay, so there are lots of different ways that you can learn how to use FTCU. You can head right into the software club, which is free. All you have to do is request registration once you get your serial number for FTCU. And inside of there are lots and lots of videos already pre-recorded that you can watch. I recommend watching on a secondary screen like a tablet or a phone, so you can watch it on that screen. You can try it on your computer. And when something goes awry, you can pause, rewind, and try it again. Remember, undo is your friend, as is the new page button when you're just getting started. So there's lots of free resources out there. I know there are resources on YouTube otherwise, and we even have workshops that are available for purchase for those kind of things. And sometimes odd questions and whatnot pop up. You can head right to the support forum. Again, also free. Post your questions there, learn about things, learn from other people. Sometimes, we find it's just super quick things. Like last time I was here, I talked about designing quilt and I kept losing my quilt blocks. I just kept hitting save as, not save to my library. And it just took someone saying, are you saving it to your library, for me to realize what was happening. So yes, there's lots of different ways you can learn about the software.
That's fabulous. No, I'm very excited to look at those YouTube videos, but I'm also thinking we have to have you back for a solo event, because I think there's a lot of information that we can cover.
So much stuff we could cover. Absolutely. I'd love to come back again.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate that. Do you want to stick around while we give away this awesome gift?
May as well.
All right, let's do it. All right, who's going to win that stabilizer bundle and these great embroidery tools? We're going to get sound effects. S. Sanders, congratulations.
Yay.
All right, well, I will show them how to claim their prize. But Ashley, thank you so much for joining us. And we appreciate all the information and you taking your time. And hopefully we'll see you back in the future.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
You can be loser, set me free.